The highway stretched empty under a November sky so thick with fog it seemed Montana had forgotten where the earth ended and heaven began. 3:47 in the morning, the hour when the world belongs only to the desperate, the determined, and the dying. Dorothy Hartwell had both hands on the wheel of her Ford F-150, the same truck Robert had driven for 22 years before cancer took him. 6 years gone now, but she still caught herself looking at the passenger seat, sometimes expecting to see him there with his thermos of black coffee and that quiet smile he wore when he was content just to be alive. The road home from the VA hospital in Great Falls ran straight for miles, then curved through hills where ponderosa pines stood like sentinels in the dark. Dorothy had driven this route 1,000 times, maybe more. 40 years as an emergency room nurse taught you to drive in any conditions, taught you to stay calm when everything around you was chaos, taught you that panic killed more people than injuries ever did. The fog swallowed her headlights. 26 degrees, cold enough that moisture in the air turned to ice crystals on her windshield. She kept her speed steady. 55. No reason to rush. The farmhouse would be dark and empty when she got there, just as it had been every night since Robert died. That's when she saw it. A shape in the fog, wrong somehow, angular where the road should be smooth. Dorothy's foot moved to the brake. The truck slowed. Her headlights caught metal, chrome, a motorcycle lying on its side back wheel still spinning lazy circles in the cold air. She pulled onto the shoulder and killed the engine, reached for the mag light in her glove box. The heavy one Robert had given her with words etched on the barrel for my dot. Stay safe. The November wind hit her face when she opened the door. Sharp, bitter, cold that found every gap in your coat and reminded you that winter in Montana didn't ask permission. It just came. Dorothy walked toward the motorcycle. A Harley-Davidson, big one. Classic paint job, black and chrome. The leather saddlebag was torn, contents scattered across the asphalt. A road atlas, a rolled-up sleeping bag, a first aid kit that had popped open bandages blowing across the highway like tiny white flags of surrender. Then she saw the blood, a trail of it dark and thick leading from the motorcycle to the drainage ditch. Too much blood, too deliberate a path. This wasn't a man who'd crashed and crawled for help. This was a man who'd been thrown. Dorothy moved the flashlight beam slowly following the blood down into the ditch, where brown grass poked through patches of snow. That's where she found him. Face down, leather jacket torn at the shoulder, one arm bent at an angle that made Dorothy's nursing instincts kick in before her common sense could catch up. She was already moving down the embankment, already checking for a pulse before she even thought about whether this was safe. Her fingers found his neck, carotid artery, weak but steady. He was alive. She rolled him gently onto his back and got her first look at his face. 50-something, maybe older. Hard to tell with the blood. A gash across his forehead deep enough she could see bone. His breathing was shallow. Ribs, definitely broken ribs. The way he was guarding his left side told her that much. His eyes opened. Blue, startling blue even in the dark. Leave me. His voice came out rough, barely a whisper. They're coming for me. Dorothy ignored him. She was already running through her assessment. Head trauma, possible concussion, broken ribs, road rash on his right side. The leather jacket had protected most of him, but his hands were shredded. Defensive wounds. This man had fought before he went down. Who's coming? Dorothy asked, keeping her voice calm. The same tone she'd used in the ER when soldiers came in torn apart by explosions, too scared to understand they were safe now. The man's eyes tried to focus on her. Failed. His head rolled to the side. Dorothy made a decision. She'd made harder ones before. The night Robert stopped breathing and she had to choose whether to let the ambulance take him or keep him home like he'd asked. The day she testified in court about a soldier's injuries and knew her words would send another man to prison. The morning she retired from nursing because her hands shook too much to start an IV anymore. This decision was easy by comparison. She climbed back up the embankment and popped the tailgate of her truck. Robert's old moving blankets were still there. Dorothy grabbed two of them and a length of rope. Getting a 200-pound unconscious man up an embankment and into a truck bed wasn't something they taught in nursing school. But 40 years in the ER meant Dorothy had lifted plenty of dead weight. You learned to use leverage. You learned to use physics. You learned that determination counted for more than strength. It took her 10 minutes. By the time she had him in the truck bed wrapped in blankets and secured with rope so he wouldn't roll her back, was screaming, and her hands were numb from the cold. But he was breathing, still breathing. Dorothy looked at the motorcycle. Leaving it felt wrong. Evidence. This was evidence of something. She could see that much. The way it had gone down. Too clean. The way the front tire pointed toward the ditch like someone had aimed it there. She grabbed the bike by its handlebars and hauled. Heavier than she expected, but she'd moved heavier. The truck bed groaned when she muscled it up and in. The unconscious man didn't even stir. Dorothy stood there for a moment, hands on her knees, catching her breath. The highway stretched empty in both directions. The fog pressed close. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the sound of engines, motorcycles, multiple bikes. Coming from the north, she didn't wait to see who they were. The F-150's engine roared to life. Dorothy pulled back onto the highway and drove south toward home, with a dying man and his motorcycle in the back, and the certain knowledge that she'd just stepped into something that would change everything. The farmhouse sat 40 acres back from the main road, connected by a gravel drive that wound through Douglas fir and lodgepole pine. Robert had built the house himself in 1975, back when lumber was cheap and a man could still carve out a life in Montana with nothing but determination and a good set of hands. Dorothy pulled around to the barn. The motion sensor light kicked on, flooding the yard with harsh white glare. She killed the engine and sat for a moment listening. Nothing. Just wind in the pines and the ticking of the truck's engine as it cooled. She lowered the tailgate and checked on her passenger. Still breathing, still unconscious. The bleeding from his head wound had slowed but not stopped. She needed to get him inside, needed to clean him up, needed to figure out exactly how bad the damage was. The barn door opened with the same creak it had made for 30 years. Robert had always meant to oil those hinges, never got around to it. Now Dorothy found the sound comforting. A reminder that some things stayed the same even when everything else changed. She'd set up a workshop in here after Robert died, partly because she needed something to do with her hands, partly because letting his tools rust felt like a betrayal. The workbench ran along one wall covered with equipment Robert had collected over the years: wrenches, socket sets, a vice grip, an arc welder he'd used to fix neighbors' farm equipment. Dorothy cleared the workbench with one sweep of her arm. Tools clattered to the concrete floor. She didn't care. She went back to the truck and started the process of moving the man again. Harder this time. He was dead weight now, completely unconscious. But Dorothy had wrestled patients twice her size when they were seizing or fighting sedation. She knew how to brace, knew how to lift, knew how to ignore the pain in her lower back that screamed with every movement. She got him onto the workbench. Under the fluorescent light, she could see him clearly for the first time. Late 50s, maybe 60. Hard to tell with men who'd lived rough. His face carried scars. Not just from tonight, old ones. A knife cut along his jaw faded to white, a burn mark on his neck. His hands were calloused like a man who'd worked with them his whole life. The leather jacket bore a patch on the back. Dorothy had seen it before, years ago when Robert worked on bikes for clubs passing through Montana. The Hells Angels Death's Head logo, Montana chapter. She'd saved a biker, a real one. Dorothy started with the head wound. Cleaning it took 20 minutes. The gash was deep but clean. She'd need to suture it. Her medical bag was in the house stocked even after retiring because old habits died hard. While she worked, she noticed other things. A handkerchief in his jacket pocket, white cotton with the initials ED, embroidered in blue thread. A wallet leather worn soft with age. She opened it. Driver's license, Marcus Dalton, height 6'2", weight 215, eyes blue. Address in Choteau, Montana. Born 1968. That made him 56. Behind the license, a photograph. A woman and a younger woman standing in front of a blue house. The older woman had dark hair and kind eyes. The younger one, maybe early 20s, had Marcus's jawline and his blue eyes. On the back, written in faded ink, Elaine and Vera, 2015. Dorothy studied the photo, 9 years old. The woman Elaine wore a smile that reached her eyes. The daughter Vera stood with one arm around her mother, caught mid-laugh. There was another item in the wallet, a folded piece of paper, the creases worn soft from being opened and refolded countless times. Dorothy unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was feminine, neat, controlled. Dad, I needed you. You weren't there. Don't call me again. V. Dated March 2020, 4.5 years ago. Dorothy refolded the note and put it back. She'd seen enough families torn apart to recognize the signs. Whatever had happened between Marcus Dalton and his daughter, it had left wounds that hadn't healed. She went back to work on his injuries. The sutures took another 30 minutes, 7 stitches neat and tight. The broken ribs she couldn't do much about except wrap them and hope they'd heal clean. The road rash she cleaned and bandaged. By the time she finished, dawn was starting to break outside. Gray light filtered through the barn windows. Dorothy was exhausted. Her hands were shaking. She needed coffee, needed food, needed to think about what she'd just done. She brought a wanted man to her home, maybe. She didn't know if Marcus Dalton was wanted, didn't know what "they're coming for me" meant, didn't know if the engine she'd heard on the highway had been looking for him. What she knew was this: a man was bleeding on her property. She'd taken an oath once a long time ago to do no harm. That oath didn't come with conditions, didn't say only help the people who deserve it, or only if it's safe. Dorothy covered Marcus with a blanket. His breathing had evened out. The color was coming back to his face. He'd sleep for a while, maybe hours. His body needed the rest. She walked back to the house as the sun crept over the horizon. The kitchen was exactly as she'd left it 12 hours ago. Coffee cup in the sink. Yesterday's newspaper on the table. The silence pressed in. Dorothy made coffee. While it brewed, she looked out the kitchen window at the barn, at the motorcycle now visible in the morning light chrome catching the sun. On the wall behind her hung a photograph. Robert Hartwell in 1972, standing next to his own Harley. Younger than Dorothy had ever known him. Before the National Guard, before the mechanic work, before cancer. Just a 22-year-old kid with a motorcycle and a dream. Robert used to say bikers lived by a code most people didn't understand. Honor, loyalty. You helped a brother when he was down. You didn't ask questions first. You didn't leave a man bleeding on the road. Dorothy had left plenty of things behind when Robert died. His clothes, his truck, his tools. But she'd kept the code. The one that said you show up when someone needs you. You don't run, you don't hide. You do the work. She poured coffee into Robert's old mug, the one with the faded Montana Grizzlies logo, and sat at the kitchen table. Outside, the November sun painted the mountains gold. Inside, Dorothy Hartwell made a list of supplies she'd need if Marcus Dalton was going to stay unconscious much longer. Medical tape, gauze, antibiotics, pain medication, something for the swelling. She had most of it. The rest she could get from town without raising suspicion. Small-town pharmacy knew her, knew she still did nursing work for neighbors who couldn't afford the drive to Great Falls. Dorothy finished her coffee. She should sleep, should rest, should take care of herself before she took care of anyone else. Instead, she walked back to the barn. Marcus was still unconscious, still breathing steady. She pulled up an old metal chair Robert used to sit in while working on engines and settled in to wait. If he woke up violent, she had Robert's shotgun mounted above the workbench, loaded, safety on. She'd only fired it twice in her life, both times to scare off coyotes getting too close to the chickens. But she knew how to use it. If he woke up scared, she'd talk him down. She'd done that before, too. Soldiers coming out of sedation, confused and terrified, lashing out at anyone close. You stayed calm, you kept your voice steady, you gave them something to anchor to. If he woke up dying, well, Dorothy had been there for that too, more times than she cared to count. The morning stretched on. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Dorothy dozed in the chair, coming awake every time Marcus's breathing changed, checking his pulse, monitoring the sutures. At 10:15, his eyes opened, blue eyes, confused, scanning the barn ceiling, the exposed beams, the fluorescent lights. His hand moved to his ribs, felt the wrapping. Dorothy stood up slowly, non-threatening, hands visible. "Easy," she said. "You're safe." Marcus's eyes found her, tried to focus. His voice came out rough, damaged. "Where am I?" "My barn, 40 miles south of where I found you." He processed this, tried to sit up, failed, groaned and lay back down. "How long?" "7 hours, give or take." Marcus's hand went to his forehead, found the sutures. His fingers traced them carefully. "You stitched me up." "I'm a nurse, retired, but the skills stick around." He looked at her properly now, really looked, taking in her age. Her gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her flannel shirt and jeans, the weathered hands of someone who'd worked her whole life. "Why?" he asked. The question Dorothy had been expecting. "Because you were bleeding on the side of the road and I took an oath 40 years ago to help people who need it." "You should have left me." "So you said, right before you passed out." Marcus closed his eyes. "They'll come looking." "Who?" "Doesn't matter. You need to get me out of here. Call the sheriff. Ambulance, I don't care, but you can't keep me here." Dorothy pulled the chair closer, sat down, looked at him with the same steady gaze she'd used on soldiers who thought they knew better than she did about their own injuries. "You got 3 broken ribs, 7 stitches in your head, a concussion and road rash from your shoulder to your hip. You try to move, you'll tear something important. You try to walk, you'll pass out. So you're going to lie there. You're going to rest. And when you're strong enough to have this conversation like an adult, we'll talk about what happens next." Marcus stared at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then impossibly, he smiled. "Just a little. You always this stubborn." "I'm 73 years old and I live alone on 40 acres in Montana. Stubborn is how I survive." The smile faded. Marcus looked at the ceiling again. "I can't pay you, don't have much money. What I do have is in my saddlebag, probably scattered across Route 89 by now. I brought your bike and your bags. They're in the back of my truck. You brought my bike. Wasn't going to leave evidence lying around." That got another look, reassessing her. "You think like a criminal. I think like someone who's lived long enough to know when something doesn't add up. That wasn't an accident. The way your bike went down, the way the blood trail led away from the road instead of toward it. Someone put you in that ditch." Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, heavier. You're right. It wasn't an accident. Who did it? Marcus looked at her, really looked, trying to figure out if he could trust this stranger who'd saved his life. Dorothy had seen that look before, on soldiers who'd been betrayed by their own, on women fleeing abusive husbands, on men who'd lost everything and didn't know who to believe anymore. She didn't push, just waited. Finally, Marcus spoke. I used to be the boss. Hell's Angels. Montana chapter. Ran it for 20 years. Did things I'm not proud of. Made decisions that kept people alive and got people killed. Tried to walk away 18 months ago, retire, be a normal person. They didn't let you walk away. It's not that simple. The club doesn't chase you when you retire. Not if you leave right. Not if you keep your mouth shut. He paused, winced as his ribs shifted. But I found something before I left. Something I wasn't supposed to find. About a brother who died 8 years ago. Warren Mercer, 28 years old. Good kid. Too good for the life. Dorothy leaned forward slightly. What did you find, that he was murdered? Not by a rival gang like the police said, by someone in the club, someone who wanted him quiet. Why him? Because Warren saw something he shouldn't have. A shipment coming through one of our warehouses. Warren thought it was guns. Marcus's jaw tightened. It wasn't guns. It was worse. Dorothy felt something cold settle in her stomach. 40 years in an emergency room meant she knew what worse than guns meant. People. Marcus's jaw tightened. Yeah. The word hung in the air between them. Heavy, final. Dorothy stood up, walked to the barn window, looked out at the mountains. Trying to process this. She'd saved a man who'd been part of human trafficking, or at least part of an organization that had been. Did you know, she asked without turning around, when it was happening? No, I swear to God I didn't know. Warren came to me, told me what he'd seen. I said I'd handle it. I told him to lay low, stay quiet, let me investigate. Marcus's voice cracked. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Shot. Dumped in an alley off Highway 2. Police called it gang retaliation. Case closed. Dorothy turned to face him. You didn't believe them. I knew Warren. He wasn't in deep enough to get killed by a rival gang. Wasn't important enough. He was a prospect, barely a full member. Nobody outside the club even knew his name. Marcus tried to sit up again. Made it this time, though his face went gray with pain. I started asking questions. Quiet questions. Found out the warehouse Warren was talking about belonged to a man named Thatcher Cole. Businessman, legitimate on paper. Runs a trucking company. Has contracts with half the state, but not legitimate in practice. Cole's dirty. Everyone knows it. Nobody can prove it. He's got lawyers, politicians, cops on his payroll. Untouchable. Dorothy crossed her arms. What does this have to do with you getting run off the road? Marcus met her eyes. Because 6 months ago I found proof, real proof, that Cole ordered Warren's hit, that someone in my club took the money and did the job. I confronted the wrong person, tipped off the real killer, and now they want me dead before I can take what I know to the authorities. Who's the killer? I don't know. That's the problem. Could be anyone. The club's got 50 active members, another 100 retired guys who still have connections. Half of them would have done the hit if the price was right. He looked down at his hands, bandaged, shaking slightly. I trusted these men, rode with them, bled with them, and one of them put me in that ditch. Dorothy walked back to the chair, sat down heavily. This was bigger than she thought, bigger than a man running from his past. This was organized crime, murder, conspiracy. She should call the sheriff. Should turn Marcus over to the authorities and let them sort it out. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way Marcus talked about Warren, the grief in his voice, the guilt. Dorothy knew that sound. She'd heard it in her own voice after Robert died. When she wondered if she could have done more, pushed harder for treatment, caught the cancer earlier. Guilt was a weight that crushed you if you carried it alone. This Thatcher Cole, Dorothy said, he just handles trafficking. Marcus shook his head. That's his main business. But he's into everything. Drugs, weapons, money laundering. If it's illegal and profitable, Cole's got a piece of it. And Warren's sister, what happened to her? Marcus looked surprised. How did you know Warren had a sister? I don't. I'm guessing. Someone who cared enough about a 28-year-old man to remember him 8 years later. Someone who'd want justice. For the first time since waking up, Marcus almost smiled. You'd make a good investigator. I was an ER nurse for 40 years, same skill set. Dorothy leaned back in her chair. So, Warren's sister, Cassidy Mercer. She was 24 when Warren died. Tore her apart. She blamed the club, blamed me specifically. I was the boss. Warren was under my protection. I failed him. What's she doing now? Runs her own motorcycle club. The Iron Roses. All women. They ride clean. No criminal activity. Just riding. Community service. Charity work. Marcus paused. But I hear things through old connections. Cassidy's been looking into Warren's death, asking the same questions I was asking, which means she's in danger too. Have you warned her? How she won't talk to me, won't listen? Far as Cassidy's concerned, I'm the enemy, the man who let her brother die. Dorothy was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer. After Robert died, I was angry. Spent months being angry. At him for smoking when he knew the risks. At the doctors for not catching it sooner. At God for taking him. At myself for not being able to save him. Marcus looked up. Anger is easier than grief, Dorothy continued. Gives you something to do, someone to blame. Cassidy's anger at you is keeping her from falling apart. But underneath it, she's grieving. Same as you. I don't grieve Warren. Yes, you do. You've been grieving for 8 years, carrying his death like a weight. That's why you couldn't let it go. Why you kept investigating even when it was dangerous. You need to make his death mean something. Marcus wanted to deny it. Wanted to say Dorothy was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. She was right. Again. The barn door banged open. Both of them jumped. Dorothy's hand went to her coat pocket. Marcus saw the outline of something small. A gun she was carrying. Smart woman. But it wasn't danger at the door. Just wind. Strong November gusts pushing through the gap where the wood had warped. Dorothy relaxed. Storm coming, she said. Radio said snow tonight. I need to leave before it hits. You're not strong enough. I'll manage. Marcus, Dorothy's voice was firm. You have 3 broken ribs and a concussion. You try to ride a motorcycle in your condition, you'll crash in the first 10 miles. Then you'll be right back where you started, bleeding in a ditch. Except this time I won't be there to find you. She was right about that too. Marcus hated how often she was right. So what do you want me to do? He asked. Stay here, wait for them to find me. I want you to think. You were a boss for 20 years. You managed 50 men, coordinated operations across 3 states. You're smart, use that. Marcus closed his eyes, thought. The pain in his ribs made it hard to focus, but he pushed through. If someone in the club is working for Cole, he said slowly, they've been doing it for at least 8 years, since Warren died, maybe longer. Okay. That means they're established, trusted, high enough in the organization to take orders from Cole and execute them without question. Who fits that description? Marcus ran through names in his head. Could be a dozen guys, enforcers, road captains, anyone with authority and access. But someone you trusted, Someone close enough to know your movements, to know where you'd be last night. That narrowed it down. Marcus opened his eyes. 3 people knew I was riding Route 89 last night. I told them I was visiting the Warren Mercer Memorial, the roadside marker where he died. I go there every year on his birthday. Dorothy frowned. His birthday was last night. No, that was the day he died. March 15th. I always get them confused now. Like his death erased his birth. Marcus shook his head. Doesn't matter. Point is, only 3 people knew where I'd be. Who? Ray Tucker, retired member. Lives in Idaho now. Good man, known him 30 years. Who else? Vincent Kane, current sergeant-at-arms. He took over after I retired, handles club security, discipline. And the third, Marcus hesitated, Cassidy Mercer. Dorothy's eyebrows rose. Warren's sister knew you were going to his memorial. I sent her a message through a mutual friend, told her I'd be there, that if she wanted to talk, I'd listen. She never showed, or maybe she did. The implication hit Marcus like cold water. You think Cassidy ran me off the road? You said she threatened to kill you. That was years ago, anger talking. Grief talking, Dorothy corrected. And grief doesn't follow a timeline. It doesn't expire. Your wife died 8 years ago, and you're still carrying that handkerchief. Marcus's hand went automatically to his jacket pocket. Empty. Dorothy must have taken it when she was treating his wounds. It's on the workbench, she said quietly. I washed it. The blood came out. Something about that simple act of kindness broke through Marcus's defenses. This woman he barely knew had washed his dead wife's handkerchief, had cared enough about a stranger's grief to preserve a memory. Thank you, he managed. Dorothy nodded, moved on. So we have 3 suspects. Ray Tucker, Vincent Kane, and Cassidy Mercer. What do we do about it? Marcus looked at her. This isn't your fight. You're in my barn. That makes it my fight. Dorothy, these are dangerous people. They've killed before. They'll kill again. I spent 40 years in emergency rooms putting people back together after dangerous people got done with them. I'm not scared of violence. I've seen too much of it. Marcus studied her face, trying to understand this woman who'd saved him, who'd taken him in, who was now offering to help him fight a war she had no stake in. Why, he asked, why are you doing this? Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Because Robert would have. Because 6 years ago I watched my husband die, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Couldn't fight back. Couldn't save him. This I can do something about. Before Marcus could respond, the sound of engines cut through the morning. Multiple motorcycles coming up the gravel drive. Dorothy moved to the window, looked out. Her expression didn't change, but Marcus saw her shoulders tighten. 3 bikes, she said, riders in leather, 2 women, 1 man. Marcus tried to stand. His ribs protested violently. Get inside the house. Lock the doors. This is my property. Dorothy's voice was calm. My property, my rules. She pulled the gun from her coat pocket. Small revolver, probably .38. Stay here. If shooting starts, you get down and you stay down. Understood. She didn't wait for an answer, just walked out of the barn like she was greeting neighbors for coffee. Marcus hobbled to the window, watched through the dusty glass as 3 motorcycles pulled into the yard. The riders killed their engines. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the noise had been. The lead rider swung off her bike. Woman, early 30s, tall, athletic build, dark hair pulled back in a braid, leather jacket with a patch on the back, a red rose wrapped around an iron chain. The iron roses. Cassidy Mercer. She pulled off her helmet and looked directly at the barn, like she knew Marcus was watching. Iron, Cassidy's voice carried across the yard. Strong, no nonsense. I know you're in there. Dorothy stepped between Cassidy and the barn. This is private property. Cassidy turned her attention to Dorothy. Ma'am, I'm not here to cause trouble. I need to talk to Marcus Dalton. Why? Because he's the only one who can help me find my brother's killer. Dorothy's posture shifted slightly. Warren Mercer was your brother? Yes, ma'am. You've been investigating his death. Cassidy looked surprised. How did you know that? Because Marcus told me, before you got here. He said you blame him for what happened. I do blame him. Cassidy's jaw tightened. Warren was under Iron's protection. He failed him. And you think confronting him now will change that? No, but it might give me answers. Cassidy took a step forward. The two other riders stayed by their bikes, watching, ready. I've spent 8 years looking for the truth about who killed my brother. I've followed every lead, talked to everyone who was there that night, and every trail leads back to the same place, Thatcher Cole. Dorothy's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw recognition flash across her face. She knew the name, knew what it meant. What do you want from Marcus? Dorothy asked. Information. He was investigating Warren's death too. I know he was. He found something that made him retire, something that made him dangerous. Cassidy's voice dropped. 3 days ago, I got a message. Anonymous. Said if I wanted to know who killed Warren, I should talk to Iron. Said he had proof. Marcus's chest tightened. He'd sent no such message, which meant someone was setting him up, drawing Cassidy out, using her as bait, or using him. Dorothy must have reached the same conclusion. This message, how did you receive it? Dead drop, old biker tradition, message left at a bar we both know, no signature, no trace. Could be a trap. Could be. Cassidy smiled. No humor in it. That's why I brought backup, but I don't think it is. Someone wants Iron and me talking. Someone thinks together we can do what we couldn't do alone. Or someone wants you both in the same place so they can eliminate you together. Then they're welcome to try. Marcus made a decision, pushed himself away from the window, walked to the barn door. Every step felt like broken glass grinding in his chest, but he made it, pushed the door open, stepped into the morning light. Cassidy, Iron. They stared at each other across 20 feet of gravel. 8 years of anger and grief and unanswered questions filling the space between them. You look like hell, Cassidy said finally. Someone ran me off Route 89 last night, left me for dead. Shame they failed. Marcus absorbed the hit. Deserved it. I'm sorry about Warren, about all of it. I failed him, I know that. Your apologies don't bring him back. No, they don't. But maybe the truth will mean something. Maybe finding his killer will. Cassidy's hands curled into fists. For a moment, Marcus thought she might take a swing at him. Instead, she took a deep breath, let it out slow. Dorothy's right, Cassidy said. Someone sent me that message for a reason. Someone wants us working together, or wants us dead together. That too. Cassidy looked at the other two riders, made a gesture. They relaxed slightly, still alert but no longer ready to jump. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything you know, every detail, every suspicion, every piece of information you have got about Warren's death and Thatcher Cole, and I'm going to do the same. Then we're going to figure out who killed my brother, together. Marcus looked at Dorothy. She gave a slight nod. Okay, he said, but not out here inside. If someone's watching, we don't make it easy for them. The 6 of them moved into Dorothy's house. The 2 Iron Roses members stayed by the door watching the yard through the windows. Cassidy sat at the kitchen table. Dorothy made coffee. Marcus lowered himself carefully into a chair across from Cassidy. Studied her properly for the first time in years. She looked like Warren. Same sharp features, same determined set to the jaw. But where Warren had been open, trusting Cassidy was closed off, guarded. Life had taught her to protect herself. You have proof, Cassidy asked. About Cole. I have evidence. Photos, documents. Enough to prove he's running human trafficking through Montana, but nothing that directly ties him to Warren's murder. Show me. Marcus hesitated. The evidence was on his phone, which was in his saddlebag, which was in Dorothy's truck. I'll get it. Dorothy was already moving out the back door before Marcus could protest. Cassidy watched her go. Who is she really? A nurse, retired, found me bleeding on Route 89, saved my life. Just like that, stranger helps a biker. Her husband used to work on bikes back in the 70s. She knows the code. Cassidy's expression softened slightly. The code. Warren believed in that, thought bikers were the last people who understood honor, loyalty. Warren was right. Warren's dead. The words hung heavy, true and terrible. Dorothy returned with Marcus's saddlebag, set it on the table. Marcus dug through it, found his phone, cracked screen, but functional. He pulled up the photos he'd taken 6 months ago, showed them to Cassidy. She leaned in, her face pale in the kitchen light. When did you take these? February. I followed one of Cole's trucks, waited until the driver stopped for gas, got into the trailer while he was inside. The photos showed the inside of a shipping container. Modified, crude bunks bolted to the walls, buckets in the corner, heavy lock on the door. A prison on wheels. How many people? Cassidy's voice was tight. That truck, maybe 15. But Cole runs dozens of trucks, hundreds of people, most of them coming from Canada, being moved south, distributed to whoever is buying. Cassidy's hands shook as she scrolled through the photos. And Warren saw this 8 years ago. I think so. I think Warren was in that warehouse when a shipment came through. I think he saw people being unloaded, maybe heard them. That's why he called me. That's why he was scared. And Cole found out. Yeah, Cole found out. And he had Warren killed before he could talk. Cassidy set down the phone, looked at each of them in turn. This is solid evidence, more than I've ever seen. But we still don't know who pulled the trigger. Marcus told her about Ray Tucker, Vincent Kane, the short list of people who'd known where he'd be last night. Cassidy listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Ray Tucker, she said finally. I know him. He was at Warren's funeral, cried like a baby. I don't think he's your man. People can fake grief. Not like that. Not for someone they killed. Cassidy shook her head. Ray loved Warren, treated him like a son. He wouldn't have done it. What about Vincent Kane? Vincent's new, only been with the club 5 years. He wasn't around when Warren died. Marcus felt the pieces shifting, so we're back to square one. Maybe not. Cassidy pulled out her own phone, opened a folder. I've been collecting evidence too. Different kind, financial records. I've got a friend who works in banking. She helped with me trace payments. Money moving from Cole's accounts to various people. Most of it's hidden behind the shell corporations. Offshore accounts, but one payment stood out. She showed Marcus a bank statement. A wire transfer, March 20th, 2016. 5 days after Warren died. $50,000 sent from a Cayman Islands account to a personal account in Montana. The account holder's name made Marcus's blood run cold. Elaine Dalton, his wife. Cassidy watched his reaction. You didn't know? No, Marcus's voice sounded distant, not his own. Elaine worked for Cole. Bookkeeping, part-time, 2015 and 2016. She quit in August 2016, month before she died. Why did she quit? She said she found discrepancies, problems with the books, told me she was going to report them. Marcus looked up, met Cassidy's eyes. She died before she could. Understanding passed between them, terrible understanding. Cole paid her, Cassidy said softly, $50,000, 5 days after Warren died. Hush money or payment for services rendered. Marcus stood up, too fast, his ribs screamed. He didn't care. Elaine didn't kill Warren. She couldn't have. She wouldn't have. I'm not saying she pulled the trigger, but she worked for Cole. She had access to his records, his schedules. What if she passed information to him? What if she told him Warren was asking questions? No. Marcus's hands were shaking. Elaine was good. She was kind. She raised our daughter. She wouldn't be part of murder. Dorothy's voice cut through his panic. Marcus, sit down before you fall down. He sat, breathing hard, the world tilting around him. Cassidy's expression was different now. Not angry, almost gentle. I'm sorry, I know this is hard, but we have to look at all possibilities. Elaine died in a car accident, brake failure. The police investigated. The same police who said Warren was killed in a gang dispute. Marcus had no answer for that. Dorothy set a glass of water in front of him. Drink. He drank, tried to think through the pain and the shock. If Elaine was involved even indirectly, Cole would have killed her too, to cover his tracks. That means her death wasn't an accident. It means someone sabotaged her brakes. Cassidy nodded. The same someone who killed Warren. Yeah. Marcus looked at the bank statement again. March 20th, 5 days after Warren died, 3 weeks before Vera stopped speaking to him. A horrible thought occurred to him. Does Vera know about the money? I don't know. Do you have access to Elaine's accounts? No, everything was in her name. After she died, it all went to Vera. I signed it over. Didn't want anything to do with money. Felt like blood money even then. Cassidy and Dorothy exchanged a look. What? Marcus demanded. Dorothy spoke carefully. If Vera inherited Elaine's accounts, she inherited that $50,000. She might have seen the transaction, might have wondered where it came from. That was 8 years ago. Vera was 23. She wouldn't have known what it meant. Or, Cassidy said quietly, she did know. And that's why she cut contact with you. Because she thought you knew about the money, thought you were part of whatever her mother was involved in. Marcus felt the world shifting under him. 4 years. 4 years of silence from his daughter. 4 years of believing she hated him for being a biker, for choosing the club over family. What if she'd hated him for something else entirely? I need to talk to Vera, he said. Where does she live? Missoula. She's a teacher, high school English. Cassidy checked her watch. 2-hour drive. We could be there by lunch. You think I'm letting you out of my sight now, after 8 years of looking for answers? We're in this together, Iron, like it or not. Marcus looked at Dorothy. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Dorothy was already reaching for her coat. We take my truck, more room, less conspicuous than motorcycles. Dorothy, this is dangerous. So is living. I've been playing it safe for 6 years. I'm tired of safe. She looked at Cassidy. Your friends can follow us. Extra security. Cassidy nodded to the 2 Iron Roses members by the door. Beth, Morgan, you heard the lady. We're going to Missoula. Beth, the shorter of the 2, spoke for the first time. What about Cole? If he's watching this place, he'll know we left together. Let him know, Cassidy said. Let him worry about what we're planning. Worry makes people sloppy. They moved quickly. Marcus grabbed his jacket. Dorothy locked up the house. The 2 Iron Roses members fired up their bikes. Within 10 minutes, they were on the road. Dorothy drove. Marcus in the passenger seat, Cassidy in the back. The 2 motorcycles followed at a distance, close enough to help if needed, far enough to spot a tail. The highway stretched ahead, gray sky pressing down. The storm Dorothy had mentioned earlier was building in the west, dark clouds rolling over the mountains. Tell me about Vera, Cassidy said from the back seat. What's she like? Marcus stared out the window. Smart. Too smart for her own good sometimes. Gets that from Elaine. Stubborn. Gets that from me. He paused. She wanted to be a writer when she was young. Used to fill notebooks with stories. Fantasy stuff, dragons and quests. I told her it was a waste of time. Told her to study something practical. Did she? Yeah, got a degree in English, became a teacher, but she stopped writing, stopped creating. I think I killed that part of her, told her dreams weren't worth pursuing. Dorothy glanced at him. You can't kill dreams, just bury them. They grow back if you let them. Maybe? Marcus didn't sound convinced. They drove in silence for a while, the landscape rolling past, mountains giving way to valleys, pine forest thick on either side of the highway. Cassidy broke the quiet. After Warren died, I stopped riding for 3 years. Couldn't get on a bike without thinking about him, about how he died doing what he loved. It felt like a betrayal, like if I kept riding, I was saying his death didn't matter. What changed, Marcus asked. I realized Warren would hate that, would hate me giving up something I loved because of him. So I started writing again. Started the Iron Roses. Made it into something positive, something Warren would be proud of. He would be proud, Marcus said. Warren always believed in second chances, in redemption. Did he get a second chance? No, he died before he could. Cassidy was quiet for a moment. Then we owe him this, finding the truth, making sure his death meant something. Yeah, we do. They crossed into Missoula just after noon. The city spread out below them. College town, young, vibrant, mountains rising on all sides. Dorothy pulled into a gas station. We need an address. Marcus pulled out his phone, searched for Vera Dalton, found her listed as faculty at Hellgate High School. He called the school. Hellgate High, how can I help you? I'm looking for Vera Dalton. She teaches English. Ms. Dalton is in class right now. Can I take a message? No, thank you. Marcus hung up, looked at Dorothy and Cassidy. She's teaching. We'll have to wait until school lets out. Where does she live? Cassidy asked. Marcus didn't know. Hadn't known for 4 years. Vera had moved after Elaine died, cut all contact, changed her number. He had no idea where his daughter lived. Dorothy pulled out her own phone. What's her full name? Vera Elizabeth Dalton. Dorothy typed. Searched. Got it. Address listed in public records. 2847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. They drove to the address, a small complex, well-maintained. Dorothy parked across the street, killed the engine. Now they waited. The storm moved closer, first drops of rain hitting the windshield. Marcus watched Vera's apartment window. Dark, empty. She wasn't home. Cassidy checked her phone. School lets out at 3:30. She should be home by 4. 2 hours. They had 2 hours to sit and wait and think about what they'd say when Vera opened her door and saw her father for the first time in 4 years. Marcus had no idea what he'd say, no idea if she'd even let him speak. The rain picked up, steady now, drumming on the roof of the truck. Dorothy pulled out a thermos, poured coffee, passed it around. They sat in silence, watching, waiting. At 4:15, a blue Honda pulled into the parking lot. A woman got out. 31, brown hair, Marcus's blue eyes. Vera. She looked older, tired, carrying a bag of groceries and a stack of papers, probably essays to grade. Marcus's hand went to the door handle. Dorothy stopped him. Wait, let her get inside, get settled, then we knock. Give her a moment to be home first. She was right, again. They waited 10 more minutes. Then Dorothy, Marcus, and Cassidy crossed the street, climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Stood outside apartment 3B. Marcus raised his hand to knock, hesitated. Cassidy looked at him. You want me to do it? No, it should be me. He knocked. 3 times, firm but not aggressive. Footsteps inside, the peephole darkened, a long pause. Then Vera's voice, muffled through the door. Dad. Marcus's throat tightened. Yeah, baby, it's me. Another pause, the sound of locks turning. The door opened. Vera stood there, looking exactly like Elaine had at that age. The same expression, the same way of holding herself. "You look terrible," she said. "Got run off the road last night, broke some ribs. And you drove 2 hours to see me. I needed to talk to you about your mother." Vera's expression closed off. "I don't want to talk about Mom." "Vera, please, it's important." She looked past Marcus, saw Cassidy. Recognition flashed across her face. "You're Warren Mercer's sister." "Yeah. You dated me briefly in 2017. You came to a barbecue at my place." Cassidy nodded. "I remember you made potato salad, too much mustard. It was perfect." The moment stretched. Then Vera stepped back. "Come in, but you've got 10 minutes, then I want you gone." They entered. The apartment was small, clean, books everywhere, shelves lined with them, stacks on the coffee table, a life built around words. Vera closed the door, crossed her arms. "What about Mom?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her the bank statement. "Did you ever see this a payment from an offshore account to your mother's account?" March 2016. Vera looked at the screen. Her face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "Cassidy's been investigating Warren's death, found financial records. This payment came 5 days after Warren was killed." "I don't understand." "Your mother worked for Thatcher Cole. Did you know that?" "She did bookkeeping for some trucking company, part-time. She quit before she died." "The trucking company belonged to Cole. He's a criminal, Vera. Human trafficking, murder. He killed Warren Mercer. And I think he killed your mother, too." Vera sat down heavily on the couch. "What?" Cassidy sat beside her. "Your mother's brakes failed. Her car went off Highway 89. Do you remember that?" "Of course I remember. I was there. I identified her body." "Did the police investigate the accident?" "They said it was mechanical failure. Old car, corroded brake line. It happens." "Or someone cut the line," Marcus said quietly. "Someone who wanted your mother dead because she knew too much about Cole's operation." Vera looked between them. "You're saying Mom was murdered. I'm saying it's possible. More than possible. She received $50,000 from Cole 5 days after Warren died. Then she quit working for him. 2 weeks later, she's dead." 50,000, Vera's voice was hollow. "I saw that transaction. When I inherited her accounts, I asked the bank about it. They said it was a bonus, payment for services." "What kind of services earned $50,000 from a human trafficker?" Cassidy asked. Vera stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the rain. "I thought Dad knew. I thought you were part of it. That's why I stopped talking to you. I thought you and Mom were both involved in something criminal. And when she died, I thought you'd gotten her killed." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. "Vera, I was 23. My mother was dead. I had all this money I didn't understand. And you were still riding with the club, still living that life. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to talk to me." "I tried." Vera turned, tears on her face. "I tried calling you for weeks after Mom died. You never answered, never called back. You were too busy grieving, too busy investigating, too busy with everything except me. I didn't know you were calling. I changed my number after Elaine died. Couldn't handle people reaching out with condolences. You changed your number and didn't tell me. I thought you didn't want to hear from me. You'd made that clear at the funeral." Vera wiped her eyes. "I was angry. I was 23 and angry, and my mother was dead. I said things I didn't mean." Dorothy stepped forward, quiet, gentle. "Both of you lost someone you loved. Both of you dealt with it in different ways. There's no right way to grieve, no wrong way. But you're here now, together. Maybe that's what matters." The apartment was silent except for the rain. Vera looked at her father, really looked, saw the bandages, the bruises, the way he held his ribs. "Someone really tried to kill you." "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I'm getting close to the truth about Warren And about your mother. Someone wants that truth buried. Vera sat back down. What do you need from me? Did your mother leave anything behind? Papers, notes, recordings, anything about coal or the trucking company? There's a storage unit with her things. I couldn't go through it all after she died. Put most of it in storage. Kept meaning to deal with it. Never did. Where? Here in Missoula. I have the key. Cassidy leaned forward. What's in the unit? Boxes. Her office supplies, files from when she did bookkeeping, her computer, personal stuff. We need to see it, Marcus said. All of it. If your mother kept evidence about coal, it'll be there. Vera looked at her father for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but I'm coming with you. If Mom died because of what she knew, I deserve to know what it was. They drove to the storage facility in two vehicles, Dorothy's truck and Vera's Honda. The Iron Roses members waited outside, watching for trouble. The unit was small, 10 by 10, stacked floor to ceiling with boxes. They started searching, 4 people going through 8 years of a dead woman's life. Marcus found Elaine's computer, old laptop, password protected. He tried a few combinations, Vera's birthday, their anniversary. Finally tried Elaine's birthday. It opened. He navigated to her documents folder, found files labeled Coal Trucking 2015 and Coal Trucking 2016. Yanine opened them. Spreadsheets, detailed financial records, income, expenses, payments to shell corporations, transfers to offshore accounts. Elaine had been meticulous, had documented everything, but there was more. A folder labeled Discrepancies. Inside a document, 20 pages. Elaine's notes in her neat handwriting. Marcus read. His hand started shaking. What is it? Cassidy asked. Marcus looked up. Elaine documented everything. Every suspicious transaction, every payment that didn't make sense. She knew Cole was trafficking people. She had proof. She was building a case. Why didn't she go to the police? She was scared. Marcus scrolled down. She wrote that she didn't know who to trust, that Cole had connections in law enforcement. She was waiting, gathering evidence, planning to go to the FBI. Vera came over, read over Marcus's shoulder. When was this dated? Marcus checked. September 1st, 2016, 8 days before she died. The weight of that settled over them. Elaine Dalton had been murdered, not because she was involved, because she was going to expose Cole. And the 50,000 Marcus found the reference. A payment Elaine had flagged as suspicious. She traced it back, found it connected to Warren Mercer's death, to the night he died. The payment hadn't been to Elaine, it had been through her. Cole had used her account to launder money, to hide the payment to whoever killed Warren. Elaine discovered it, Cassidy whispered, kept records, was planning to turn it all over. So Cole killed her too. Marcus felt something break inside him. 8 years. 8 years of thinking Elaine had died in an accident. 8 years of carrying guilt for failing to save her. She hadn't needed saving from an accident. She'd needed saving from a murderer. And Marcus had failed her anyway. Vera's hand touched his shoulder. Dad, you couldn't have known. I should have known. I should have protected her. You didn't know, Cassidy said firmly. None of us knew. That's what makes Cole dangerous. He's careful, methodical. He covers his tracks. Not well enough. Dorothy was holding a folder. Look at this. Inside the folder were photographs, security camera footage, printed out, time-stamped March 15th, 2016, the night Warren died. The images showed a warehouse, figures moving in the dark, a truck, people being unloaded. And in one photo clear as day, a face Marcus recognized. Not someone from the club, someone else, Thatcher Cole himself, personally overseeing the shipment the night Warren Mercer died. This is it, Cassidy whispered. This is proof Cole was there. At the warehouse the night my brother was killed. Marcus looked at Vera. Your mother took these. She must have been investigating too, following Cole, documenting his operation. She was going to turn him in, Vera said. She was going to stop him. And he killed her for it. They stood in silence, surrounded by boxes of a dead woman's life, holding the evidence that would destroy the man who'd killed her. We take this to the FBI, Marcus said. Now, today. No, Cassidy shook her head. We don't know who we can trust. Cole's had 8 years to spread his influence, plant people. We go to the wrong person, this evidence disappears. Then who do we go to? Dorothy spoke quietly. I know someone. Clayton Rourke, retired FBI, worked organized crime for 30 years. Incorruptible. If anyone can be trusted, it's him. Where is he? Lives in Kalispell, about 2 hours from here. Marcus checked his watch, almost 6 p.m. We drive tonight before Cole realizes what we found. They packed the evidence, computer, files, photographs, everything Elaine had collected, everything that proved Thatcher Cole was a murderer. As they loaded Dorothy's truck, Vera pulled Marcus aside. I'm sorry, she said, for cutting you out, for blaming you, for not trusting you. You had every reason not to trust me. I was a bad father, bad husband. I chose the club over you and your mother too many times. But you're here now. You're trying to make it right. Too late to make it right, but maybe not too late to get justice. Vera hugged him, first time in 4 years. Marcus held his daughter and felt 8 years of pain start to crack. Not healing, not yet, but beginning to. They drove through the November rain, Dorothy and Marcus in the front, Vera and Cassidy in the back, the Iron Roses following on their bikes. Headlights cutting through the dark. Somewhere behind them, Marcus knew Cole's people were searching, hunting, getting closer. But ahead was Clayton Rourke and the truth, and maybe finally justice for Warren Mercer and Elaine Dalton. The storm broke open, rain hammering the windshield, lightning splitting the sky. Dorothy drove steady, unflinching, a 73-year-old woman carrying the weight of the world in the back of her truck. Marcus looked at her. Thank you for all of this. You didn't have to get involved. Yes, I did, Dorothy said. Someone had to. Might as well be me. In the back seat, Cassidy and Vera were talking, sharing memories of Warren and Elaine, finding common ground in grief. Marcus closed his eyes, let the sound of rain and voices wash over him. For the first time in 8 years, he felt something like hope. Clayton Rourke lived in a cabin 20 miles outside Kalispell, down a dirt road that turned to mud in the rain. Dorothy's truck struggled through the ruts. The headlights caught pine trees pressing close on both sides. No street lights, no neighbors, just wilderness and the sound of rain hammering the roof. You sure he'll talk to us? Marcus asked. His ribs were screaming again. The drive from Missoula had been 2 hours of gritting his teeth against every bump. Clayton knows me, Dorothy said. His daughter had a riding accident 5 years back, broke her spine. I was the nurse on duty, sat with him for 16 hours while she was in surgery, told him she'd walk again when every doctor said she wouldn't. Did she? She walked down the aisle at her wedding last summer. Dorothy navigated around a fallen branch. Clayton doesn't forget people who show up when it matters. The cabin appeared through the trees, small, solid, lights on in the windows. A Ford Ranger parked out front, newer than Dorothy's truck, but just as practical. They pulled up, killed the engine. The Iron Roses members on their bikes stopped further back, creating a perimeter. Professional, military-like. Before they could get out, the cabin door opened. A man stepped onto the porch. 64, maybe 65. Silver hair cut short. Lean build that came from discipline, not genetics. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, but something about the way he stood screamed law enforcement. Clayton Rourke. Even retired, he looked like someone you didn't lie to. Dorothy Hartwell, he called out, voice deep, carrying authority even in greeting. Hell of a night for a visit. Dorothy opened her door. Hello, Clayton. I need your help. Figured as much. People don't drive through this weather for social calls. His eyes moved to Marcus, then Cassidy, then Vera, assessing, reading them. You going to introduce me to your friends? Inside, Dorothy said. This isn't a conversation for the rain. Clayton stepped back, held the door. They filed in, dripping water on his hardwood floors. He didn't comment on the mess, just moved to the fireplace, added a log, gestured to the couch and chairs. The cabin's interior matched its owner. Functional, no wasted space. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with true crime and case law. A desk in the corner held a computer and filing cabinets. Pictures on the mantel showed a younger Clayton in FBI gear, then an older Clayton with a woman in a wedding dress. The daughter who'd walked again. Coffee, Clayton asked. Please, Dorothy said. He disappeared into the kitchen, returned with a pot and mugs, poured for everyone, sat in a leather chair that had molded to his shape over years. So, he said, what brings Dorothy Hartwell and three strangers to my door on a Tuesday night? Dorothy looked at Marcus. Your story, your lead. Marcus set down his coffee, met Clayton's eyes. My name is Marcus Dalton. I was boss of the Hells Angels Montana chapter for 20 years. Retired 18 months ago. Last night, someone from my former club tried to kill me. Left me bleeding in a ditch off Route 89. Dorothy found me, saved my life. Clayton's expression didn't change. And you came to me because we have evidence of human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, organized crime spanning 8 years, evidence that implicates Thatcher Cole. That got a reaction, small, just a tightening around Clayton's eyes. Cole's been on federal radar for a decade. We've never been able to touch him. We can touch him now. Cassidy leaned forward. My name is Cassidy Mercer. My brother Warren was killed in March 2016. Police called it gang violence. Case closed. But Warren was murdered because he witnessed one of Cole's trafficking operations. Vera spoke next. I'm Vera Dalton, Marcus's daughter. My mother, Elaine, worked for Cole Trucking as a bookkeeper. She discovered what Cole was doing, started collecting evidence. September 2016, her car's brakes failed. She went off Highway 89, died instantly. Clayton was very still now, listening with the intensity of someone who'd spent 30 years hearing confessions and separating truth from lies. You're saying Elaine Dalton's death wasn't an accident. I'm saying someone sabotaged her brakes because she was going to expose Cole's operation. Vera's voice was steady, strong, and I can prove it. Marcus pulled out the laptop, opened Elaine's files, turned the screen toward Clayton. For the next hour, they walked him through everything: the financial records, the photographs from the warehouse, the timeline of Warren's death and Elaine's death 6 months apart, the $50,000 laundered through Elaine's account, the discrepancies she documented. Clayton read in silence, occasionally making notes in a small notebook he'd pulled from his shirt pocket. Old habit. When they finished, he closed the laptop, looked at each of them in turn. This is solid evidence, he said, more than solid. This could bring down Cole's entire operation, but there's a problem. What problem? Cassidy demanded. Chain of custody. You broke into a storage unit, took a dead woman's property without a warrant. Defense lawyers will shred this in court. Call it fruit of the poisonous tree. Inadmissible. The storage unit belonged to me, Vera said. My mother's things became mine when she died. I gave permission for the search. That helps, but it's still circumstantial. We need more. We need to catch Cole in the act. Catch him with victims. Catch him moving product. Something that proves he's still operating. Because right now, all this evidence shows is what he did 8 years ago. Statute of limitations might protect him on some charges. Marcus felt frustration rising. So what do we do? Clayton stood, walked to his desk, pulled out a file. 3 days ago, I got a call from a friend still in the bureau. Canadian Border Patrol flagged some suspicious trucks, Cole's trucks, coming through Montana. Said they looked heavy, like they were carrying cargo beyond what the manifest claimed. He handed the file to Marcus. Border crossing reports, dates, times, truck identification numbers. Next shipment is scheduled for tomorrow night, Clayton said. November 28th, Thanksgiving Eve. Cole probably figures law enforcement will be understaffed, distracted, perfect time to move people. Where, Cassidy asked. Warehouse outside Kalispell, the same one Warren Mercer died investigating 8 years ago. Cole's been using it all this time. Gotten comfortable, complacent. Dorothy leaned forward. You want to raid it? I want the FBI to raid it, with proper warrants, proper procedure. So when we arrest Cole, it sticks. Clayton looked at Marcus. But to get those warrants, I need probable cause. Real probable cause. Not just old financial records. I need current evidence of criminal activity. You want us to surveil the warehouse, Marcus said. I want you to document what happens there tomorrow night. Photographs, video, time-stamped, showing trucks arriving, people being moved. Cole personally involved. Give me that and I can get warrants signed by dawn on Friday. We hit Cole's operation across 3 states simultaneously. Shut him down forever. Cassidy shook her head. That warehouse will be guarded. Cole's not stupid. He'll have security, cameras, armed men. I know. Clayton's expression was grim. That's why I'm asking, not ordering. This is dangerous. If you're caught, I can't protect you. You'll be on your own. Marcus looked at Dorothy, at Cassidy, at Vera. His daughter spoke first. I'm in. My mother died trying to stop Cole. I'm finishing what she started. Vera, no, Marcus said. It's too dangerous. You don't get to protect me now, not after 4 years. I'm an adult. This is my choice. Cassidy nodded. Warren died in that warehouse, or near it. I'm not letting his death be for nothing. I'm in. Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. Small, determined. Someone needs to drive. Might as well be me. Marcus wanted to argue. Wanted to tell them all this was insane. That they should let law enforcement handle it. Let trained people take the risk. But he'd been law enforcement adjacent for 20 years. Knew how slowly the system moved. Knew how many things could go wrong. How evidence could disappear. How people with money and connections could walk away clean. Warren and Elaine deserve better than bureaucracy. Okay, he said, we do this, but we do it smart. We have a plan, we have backup. And if anything goes wrong, we run. No heroes. Agreed. They agreed. Clayton spent the next 2 hours walking them through the warehouse layout, drawing maps from memory, explaining sightlines, security positions, the route trucks would take coming in. The Iron Roses members joined the planning. Beth and Morgan had military backgrounds, special forces. They knew tactics, knew how to move unseen. By midnight, they had a plan, not perfect, but workable. Dorothy would drive her truck to a position half a mile from the warehouse, high ground with a view of the entrance. She'd have binoculars, a camera with a telephoto lens. She'd document everything. Marcus and Cassidy would get closer, on foot. Moving through the tree line, they'd plant small cameras, wildlife cameras technically, motion activated, used by hunters and researchers, completely legal to own. Vera would stay with Dorothy, act as communications. She'd have a radio. If anything went wrong, she'd call Clayton. He'd be waiting 5 miles out, with local law enforcement he trusted, ready to move in if needed. The Iron Roses would provide perimeter security, watch the roads, make sure no one approached unseen. It was risky. Too many variables, too many ways it could go wrong. But it was their shot. Maybe the only one they'd get. They slept in Clayton's cabin that night, a few hours of restless unconsciousness. Marcus on the couch, his ribs making it impossible to find a comfortable position. He woke before dawn, found Dorothy already up, making coffee in the kitchen. Couldn't sleep, she asked. Too much on my mind. She poured him a cup. They sat at the kitchen table, the cabin quiet around them, everyone else still asleep. You don't have to do this, Marcus said. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Saved my life. Gave me a place to heal. This next part, you don't owe me that. Dorothy sipped her coffee. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Elaine, for Warren, for every person Cole trafficked and destroyed. And I'm doing it for me, because 6 years ago I gave up. Stop fighting. Let grief turn me into someone who just existed instead of lived. You reminded me what it feels like to matter, to make a difference. We might not make a difference. We might just get ourselves killed. Maybe, but we'll die trying. That's more than I've done in 6 years. Marcus had no answer for that, just reached across the table, took her hand. She squeezed back. They sat there as the sun came up, two people who'd lost everything finding something worth fighting for in each other's courage. The day passed in preparation, checking equipment, going over the plan, eating a meal none of them tasted. Clayton made calls, coordinated with his FBI contacts, set up the response team that would move in once they had evidence. By evening, they were ready. The convoy left Clayton's cabin at 6 p.m., Dorothy's truck in front, the Iron Roses bikes behind. They drove in silence, the weight of what they were about to do settling over everyone. The warehouse sat in an industrial area north of Kalispell, surrounded by abandoned buildings and empty lots. Dorothy parked on a hill overlooking the area, killed the lights. They could see the warehouse clearly, a large metal building, loading docks on one side, a single entrance on the other, security lights creating pools of brightness in the dark. Two vehicles were already there, black SUVs, guards visible, walking the perimeter, armed. Cole's not taking chances, Cassidy murmured. Marcus checked his watch. 7 p.m. The shipment was scheduled for 9. They had 2 hours to get in position. He and Cassidy geared up, dark clothes, faces covered. Marcus moved slowly, his ribs protesting every motion. But he'd lived with pain before, knew how to work through it. Beth handed him a small pack. Cameras are inside, motion activated, battery life of 72 hours. Plant them with a view of the loading dock and entrance. Try to get one inside if you can. If we can get inside, we're too close, Marcus said. Then don't get inside. Beth's smile was sharp. Stay safe, Iron. Marcus looked at Vera, his daughter watching him with Elaine's eyes. So much fear there. So much determination. Dad, she said, come back. I will. Promise me. He wanted a promise, wanted to give her that certainty. But he'd made too many promises he couldn't keep. Had learned that good intentions meant nothing against hard reality. I'll try, he said instead. That's all I can promise. That I'll try. Vera hugged him hard. That's enough. Marcus and Cassidy moved into the darkness. The tree line was 50 yards from the warehouse. They covered it slowly, carefully, staying low, using the terrain. Marcus's ribs felt like they were tearing with every step. He pushed through it, focused on the mission, on Warren, on Elaine, on all the people Cole had destroyed. They reached the tree line, dropped into cover. Marcus pulled out the cameras. Small, no bigger than a deck of cards. He placed one at the base of a pine tree, angled it toward the loading dock, activated it. A tiny red light blinked once, then went dark. Active. Cassidy moved 20 yards left, placed another camera, different angle, covering the entrance. They worked in silence, communicating with hand signals. Old habits from different lives. Marcus from the club. Cassidy from writing where trust meant survival. By 8:30, they had 4 cameras placed. Good coverage. Multiple angles. Marcus keyed his radio. Dorothy, we're in position. Dorothy's voice crackled back. Copy. I have eyes on the entrance, nothing yet. They settled in to wait, the November cold seeping through their clothes. Marcus's breath visible in the dark, his ribs a constant scream of pain. Beside him, Cassidy was motionless, patient, a hunter's patience. Thank you, Marcus said quietly, for giving me a chance, for not putting a bullet in me when you could have. I thought about it, Cassidy admitted. Spent 8 years thinking about it, planning it, imagining what I'd say when I finally pulled the trigger. What changed? Dorothy, the way she talked about redemption, about second chances, made me think about what Warren would want. He believed in people, believed they could change, even when they didn't deserve it. I don't deserve it. No, you don't, but Warren would have given you the chance anyway, so I am too. At 8:55, headlights appeared on the access road. A semi-truck, unmarked, Canadian plates. It pulled up to the warehouse, back toward the loading dock. Dorothy's voice. I have visual, large truck, 18-wheeler, can't see inside. Marcus raised his camera, started filming, the telephoto lens bringing the scene close. He could see the driver, young, nervous, looking around like he expected trouble. The warehouse door opened. 3 men stepped out. One of them was tall, well-dressed. Even in the dark, Marcus recognized him. Thatcher Cole, 58 years old, gray hair combed back, expensive coat. He looked like a businessman, a legitimate entrepreneur. He looked nothing like a monster. Cole approached the truck, spoke to the driver. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. The driver was scared. Cole was in control. The truck's rear door opened. Cole's men climbed inside. A moment later, they emerged with people, men, women, young, terrified, hands bound, mouths taped. Marcus counted 15. 15 people being led like cattle into the warehouse. His hands shook on the camera, rage and grief mixing until he couldn't separate them. Stay calm, Cassidy whispered. We document. We don't engage. She was right. Engagement would mean blowing the operation, would mean these 15 people and everyone else Cole trafficked would continue to suffer. But God, it was hard to watch. The people disappeared into the warehouse. Cole followed. The door closed. The truck pulled away, heading south, probably to a truck stop where it would blend in with dozens of other semis, disappear. Marcus kept filming, documenting everything, timestamps, faces, license plates. At 9:30, another vehicle arrived. A van, 4 more people dragged out, all women. Marcus's stomach turned. Cassidy was crying silently beside him, just like Warren described, exactly like he said. We're stopping it now, Marcus said. This time it sticks. They filmed for another hour. 3 more vehicles, 26 more people total, all of them going into that warehouse, all of them being processed, sorted, prepared for sale. At 11, Cole emerged, got into one of the SU-5s, drove away, leaving his men to finish the work. Marcus keyed his radio. Dorothy, did you get all that? Every second, multiple angles, clear images of Cole, clear images of the victims. This is enough, more than enough. We need one more thing, Cassidy said. We need to get inside, get footage of the conditions, the cages, the way they're being held. That'll make it real for a jury. Make it impossible to dismiss as people being moved for legitimate work. Marcus knew she was right, But getting inside meant serious risk, meant getting close to armed guards, meant if they were caught, they'd be killed. No question. I'll do it, Cassidy said. I'm smaller, faster. I can get in and out. No, too dangerous. Marcus, I've spent 8 years preparing for this. I know how to move. Trust me. He wanted to say no, wanted to refuse, but Cassidy was already moving, slipping through the shadows toward the warehouse, disappearing into the dark like smoke. Marcus watched through the camera, his heart hammering, every second an eternity. Cassidy reached the warehouse wall, found a window high up, probably an office. She pulled out a small pry bar, worked the window. It opened. She climbed through, disappeared inside. Marcus waited, watching the guards. They hadn't noticed, too focused on their phones, on staying warm. 5 minutes, 10. Come on, Cassidy, get out. 15 minutes. Marcus's radio crackled. Not Dorothy. Beth, the Iron Roses member on perimeter security. Iron, we have a problem. Multiple vehicles approaching, fast SUVs, armed men. How many? 8, maybe 10. They're surrounding the warehouse. Marcus swore, keyed his radio. Cassidy, get out now, we have incoming. No response. He tried again. Cassidy, do you copy? Static. She was too deep in the building. Radio couldn't penetrate. Marcus made a decision, started moving toward the warehouse. If Cassidy was trapped, he'd get her out, broken ribs or not. Dorothy's voice. Marcus, stop. I can't leave her. You're not leaving her. But charging in gets you both killed. Her voice was firm, steady, the nurse who'd seen everything. Think, you're smarter than this. Marcus stopped, hating that Dorothy was right, hating that all he could do was watch. The SUVs pulled up. Men got out. Professional, organized. Not Cole's usual crew. These were different. Military contractors, mercenaries. Someone had tipped them off. Someone knew about the surveillance. It was a trap. The whole thing, the shipment. Cole had known they were coming. Clayton's voice on the radio, urgent. Marcus, abort. Get everyone out, now. Cassidy's inside. Then we go get her, together with backup. FBI's moving now. ETA is in 10 minutes. Don't engage. 10 minutes. An eternity when someone you're responsible for is in danger. But Marcus had made a promise. No heroes. If anything went wrong, they'd run. He keyed his radio. Everyone pull back. Rendezvous at Clayton's position. What about Cassidy? Vera's voice, scared. FBI's coming for her. We have to trust them. He started moving back through the trees. Every step felt like betrayal. But charging in would only get more people killed. The tree line thinned. Marcus broke into open ground, 50 yards to Dorothy's truck. Headlights blazed to life behind him, an SUV, cutting him off. Marcus changed direction, running, his ribs on fire. The SUV accelerated, closing the distance. He wasn't going to make it. Then Dorothy's F-150 roared to life, came flying down the hill, positioning between Marcus and the pursuing SUV. Get in, Dorothy shouted through the open passenger window. Marcus didn't argue, dove through the door. Dorothy punched the accelerator before he'd even closed it. The SUV pursued. Dorothy drove like she'd spent 40 years navigating Montana winters, which she had, using terrain, using knowledge, losing them on back roads that disappeared into forest. By the time they reached Clayton's position, the SUV was gone. The FBI convoy was there. 20 vehicles. Tactical teams gearing up. Clayton approached. Cassidy, still inside, Marcus said. Then we get her out. Clayton turned to his team. We have an agent in the field. Federal warrants are being executed. All units move. The convoy rolled out. Marcus, Dorothy, and Vera followed in the F-150. When they reached the warehouse, it was chaos. FBI agents everywhere. The mercenaries on the ground. hands zip-tied, Cole's men surrendering, and walking out of the warehouse escorted by two agents Cassidy, unhurt. Marcus nearly collapsed with relief. Clayton approached Cole's lead mercenary. "Derek Price, we've been looking for you for 8 years." Price said nothing. "You killed Warren Mercer in March 2016. Shot him execution style in an alley off Highway 2. You want to tell me why I'm—" "Lawyer," Price said. "You'll need one." Clayton gestured to his team. "Derek Price, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, and about a dozen federal charges. Read him his rights." Inside the warehouse, victims were being freed, medical teams working, translators coordinating. And in the center of it all, in handcuffs, Thatcher Cole. Clayton read him his rights. "Thatcher Cole, you're under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, money laundering." The list went on. Cole's expression never changed, calm, controlled. "I want my lawyer." "You'll get one, but let me tell you what we have. 8 years of financial records. Your bookkeeper, Elaine Dalton, documented everything before you killed her. Photographs of you at this warehouse in 2016. Video of you here tonight. 53 victims we've rescued. All of them willing to testify. Your operation is done." For the first time, Cole's composure cracked. Elaine's records were destroyed. Her daughter kept copies, kept everything, and she gave it all to us. Cole looked at Vera, recognition dawning, then acceptance. He was finished. He knew it. Marcus stepped forward. "One question. Who sabotaged Elaine's brakes?" Cole smiled. "Lawyer." Marcus's fist moved before he could think. Connected with Cole's jaw, solid, satisfying. Cole went down. FBI agents pulled Marcus back. Clayton stepped between them. "Marcus, he killed my wife." "I know. He'll pay for it the right way." Clayton looked at his team. "Get Cole medical attention, then book him." They led Cole away, still smiling, still convinced he'd walk. He wouldn't. Marcus knew that now. The night blurred, statements given, evidence cataloged, victims transported to safety. By dawn, it was over. Marcus stood outside the warehouse, watching the sunrise over Montana. Same sun that had risen on Elaine's last morning. Same sun that had risen the day Warren died. But today, justice had arrived. Cassidy appeared beside him. "Thank you for trusting me to go in." "Thank Dorothy. She's on in. She's the one who kept me from charging in after you." "I got what we needed." Cassidy held up her phone. Video footage, the cages, the conditions, everything. "How'd you get out?" "Hid in an office when the mercenaries arrived. FBI found me when they swept the building." She looked at the warehouse. "Warren saw this 8 years ago. He tried to stop it, and they killed him for it. He'd be proud of you. He'd be proud of both of us." Cassidy turned to him. "What happens now?" "Now we heal." Vera approached, wrapped her arms around Marcus. "It's over." "Yeah, it's over. Mom can rest now." "Yeah." They stood together, father and daughter, watching the sun paint the sky gold. Dorothy joined them, quiet, steady. "Clayton wants statements, but he said we can do them later, suggested we get breakfast first." "Breakfast sounds good," Marcus said. They drove to a diner in Kalispell, ordered eggs and toast and bacon. None of them were hungry, but they ate it anyway, because living meant going through the motions, even when you were exhausted, especially then. Clayton arrived as they were finishing, slid into the booth beside Dorothy, looked like he hadn't slept either, but there was something different in his eyes now. Satisfaction. "Derek Price is talking," Clayton said. "Gave up Vincent Kane as the inside man. Kane's been arrested. The whole network is falling apart." "And Cole," Marcus asked, "denied bail. Looking at life without parole. His lawyers are already trying to negotiate, but the evidence is overwhelming. He's done." Marcus felt something unlock in his chest. 8 years of carrying Elaine's death, of wondering if he'd failed her. He hadn't failed her. Cole had killed her, and now Cole would pay. What about us? Vera asked. Are we in trouble for the surveillance? Clayton shook his head. You were on public land using legal equipment. Everything you documented is admissible. You did good work. We broke into the warehouse, Cassidy pointed out. You entered an unsecured window during the commission of a federal crime. You witnessed victims in distress. Any reasonable person would have investigated further. Clayton smiled. The law isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing. They sat in silence for a moment, processing, decompressing. So what now? Dorothy asked. Now you go home, Clayton said. Rest, heal. Come back in a few days to give formal statements. After that, he shrugged. Live your lives. You've earned it. The waitress refilled their coffee. Outside, the November morning was cold and bright. The storm had passed, left everything clean. There's something else, Clayton said. He pulled out a folder, set it on the table. Among the victims we rescued last night, one of them was a 22-year-old woman named Sarah Mitchell, taken from Vancouver 6 weeks ago. Her parents flew down overnight. They asked me to thank you. All of you. He opened the folder. A photograph. A young woman with dark hair and scared eyes, but alive. Safe now. Sarah said she'd given up hope, thought no one was looking for her, thought no one cared. Clayton looked at each of them. You proved her wrong. Dorothy stared at the photograph. Her hand shook slightly as she touched it. We made a difference, she whispered. You made all the difference. They drove back to Dorothy's farm that afternoon. The November sky clear now. Storm passed, winter coming, but not here yet. Vera stayed for dinner. Cassidy and the Iron Roses joined. Clayton brought steaks from town. They cooked outside despite the cold, stood around Dorothy's grill, drinking beer, telling stories. Not about the warehouse, not about Cole, about other things, easier things. Warren's terrible jokes, Elaine's potato salad, Robert's tool collection, the first bike Cassidy ever rode, memories that didn't hurt anymore, or hurt less, or hurt in ways that felt like healing. As the sun set, Vera pulled Marcus aside. I'm going back to Missoula tomorrow. School starts Monday. Okay, but I'll come back next weekend and the weekend after that. She looked at him. If that's okay. More than okay. We have a lot of time to make up for. Yeah, we do. Vera paused. I'm sorry for the 4 years, for not giving you a chance. I'm sorry, too, for all the years before that, for choosing wrong. Vera hugged him. We start from here, not from perfect, just from trying. I can do trying. That night, after everyone had left, Marcus and Dorothy sat on the porch. Stars overhead, cold air sharp with pine and coming snow. You know what I realized, Marcus said. What? 5 days ago, I was dying in a ditch. Today, I'm sitting on a porch watching stars with people who care if I'm alive. That's not luck. That's you. That's us, Dorothy corrected. You chose to trust me, to stay, to fight. I just gave you the chance. Best chance I ever got. Dorothy smiled. Clayton offered me a job, consultant for the FBI, helping train agents on trauma care, victim support. You taking it, thinking about it, means going to Quantico a few times a year, but mostly I'd work from here. She looked at him. What about you? What's next? Marcus thought about it. I don't know. First time in my life, I don't have a plan. That's not a bad thing. Feels strange, feels free. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something good from the wreckage. Inside the house, it was warm. Outside, the Montana stars turned. And between those two places, Marcus Dalton and Dorothy Hartwell understood that sometimes the most important choice you make is the simplest one. To stop, to help, to stay. Everything else follows from that. The old woman had found a dying Hells Angels boss on the side of the road. What she did changed everything. Not because she was perfect, not because she had all the answers, but because when faced with someone bleeding and broken, she chose to stop. And sometimes that choice is all it takes to save a life, start a friendship, prove that broken things can heal. One choice, one woman, one cold November night. Everything changed.